Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I'm going to talk about week 9 matches for the Overwatch League mid-season madness. This is the penultimate week before the playoffs for the mid-season madness, and most, if not all, of the spots for the West region have already been locked. For the East, I think there is 2 or 1 spot remaining, so we'll be watching that a bit. So let's now have a look at the week 9 matches results, and here they are. Oh crap, there we go. So these are all of the results. So the first one was the Philadelphia Fusion versus the Hangzhou Spark. That was a 3-2 victory for the Philadelphia Fusion. I think this is so the Fusion last week went 0-2. This time they went 1-0, so they went 1-1, which is decent. At least actually they got a win. It was up against the Spark, who look incredibly dominant now this season, but they kind of fell off this week, which is a bit of I guess a bit of an eyebrow raising moment, but I think that might be all right. But very close game either way. And God did get MVP. Very close game between the two teams. Next up, the Chengdu Hunters versus the Guangzhou Charge, and it was the Chengdu Hunters winning that against the Charge. This also shows that the Charge is the worst team in the East region. I don't know what the hell is happening to the Charge. I thought they, obviously I did predict them. I think I did predict them to be last, in my predictions. But either way, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Like, what the hell are they doing? Actually, no, I predicted Valiant to be lost. I forgot about that. Whoopsies. I knew they were going to be a bottom half team, but my god, they have been horrible this whole season. It's kind of depressing to see that, actually, of how badly they are. But Leave did get MVP. At least the Hunters. At least they actually do get a win, which is pretty good. Next up, it was the Battle of Europe between the London Spitfire and the Paris Eternal. It was the London Spitfire winning that 3-0 in the Paris Eternal. Very convincing win for the Spitfire, who look like an actual contender, maybe even the dark horse for the playoffs. Backbone was did get MVP, and the Eternal actually also announced the release of Mobugi. I think that's how you say his name, the assistant coach for the Paris Eternal. He's now gone from the team, so we don't know who is going to be the other coach, or maybe they're just going to have the Vancouver Titans approach, where they just have one coach for some stupid reason. But we shall see how they do that. The next one is the Houston Outlaws versus the Atlanta Reign. It was a very close game, but it was the Houston Outlaws winning that in a 3-2 fashion. Merity did get MVP. I think there was also some pictures, I think, of Hawk's player camera, and he just looked incredibly shocked. I think it was because they C9'd. I'm guessing most likely they C9'd, and they were just in disbelief. It was like Moth's reaction, like in 2019 in during the playoffs. It was basically that. So basically, yes, imagine just Moth's face, but it's looking like forward. It's looking right at you. So that was pretty funny. But the Outlaws does get the win against the Atlanta Reign. And finally, on this day, on July 1st, it was the LA Gladiators winning against the Toronto Defiant 3-1. Patty Fan got MVP, and I think that might have been also C9 here as well, because I saw pictures that Kevsir typed in chat C9. I think Shoot and Patty Fan as well. But I might be wrong with that. But I definitely remember Kevsir said C9. So a bit of a C9 issues going on in the West region on July 1st. Let me move over to the East region once again. It was the Seoul Dynasty versus the Guangzhou Charge, and it was a very convincing win for the Seoul Dynasty 3-0. Smurf did got MVP, and Dynasty have been looking really good, which is a great sign for like attention of winning mid-season madness, because obviously now this is going to be based in Hawaii for the West, so they will have very similar ping. Next up, it is the LA Valiant versus the Chengdu Hunters. I thought the Valiant was going to put up a big, more of a fight. It didn't look like that. The Chengdu Hunters was a 3-0 victory, even though it did look pretty close. It was still a victory for the Chengdu Hunters, 3-0, and Leave did get MVP for that. Next up, it is the Shanghai Dragons versus the Philadelphia Fusion. And the Fusion did lose against the Shanghai Dragons, 3-0 for the Dragons, and Lip did get MVP. This might be the resurgence for the Dragons because obviously they went 0-2 last week, and then now this week they went 2-0. So might be actually some good signs for the team. We just have to wait and see though. The SF Shock versus the Vancouver Titans, and it was the San Francisco Shock winning that. I mean, who saw that coming? I mean, Watch When Gibraltar was pretty close, but I mean, who saw this coming, that the Shock was going to 3-0 everyone? Like, Jesus Christ, they have looked very, very dominant, and they're obviously working on building on becoming the Dynasty. I mean, they've already became a dynasty by being the first team to win 2 championships. They might get 3. We shall see though. But Finn did get MVP for that, and then we got the LA Gladiators winning it against the Washington Justice 3-1. This also locked in Atlanta and the London Spitfire into the playoffs. So that's all something there. The Gladiators were already locked into the playoffs, and the Outlaws locked themselves into the playoffs after winning against the Rain. A lot of stuff was obviously happening because of the playoffs, but it was the Gladiators winning that against the Justice. Patty Fan was MVP once again. And we got the Toronto Defiant versus the Paris Eternal, and I was not expecting for this game to be super, super close. It was a 3-2 victory for the Toronto Defiant, and Hisu did get MVP. I can't remember the last time the Defiant actually won. They've just been an afterthought team, I'll be honest. No one really remembers them or really talks about them. They've just been an afterthought in like most occasions. So I'm surprised that they won, to be honest. And I'm surprised of how close it was. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. For the East, we got the Hangzhou Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty, and it was the Seoul Dynasty winning this game 3-0. Was it close at Midtown? Midtown was basically a dumpster fire. It was just a clean sweep for the Defiant. Vindime does get MVP. Definitely a player protege for the Dynasty. I mean, when I remember, I think in my video where I was talking about the Dynasty, I wasn't too sure about how good Vindime was going to go, because he only played like in like Gen A or something, or Gen B, like basically like the academy teams of Gen G Esports. Now he's performed extremely well, and I am not doubting him ever again. So I move over to the Shanghai Dragons versus the LA Valiant. And it was the Shanghai Dragons winning against the LA Valiant 3-0. Basically, it was not very close. I really thought the Valiant was going to put up a bit more fight against the Dragons, but Flair got MVP. What more do you really have to say about that? It was very, very clear that the Shanghai Dragons came back alive. Now we got the London Spitfire versus the Washington Justice. It was a 3-2 victory for the London Spitfire. Very, very close game. Just going back and forth. The Justice almost pulled off the reverse sweep, but it was the Spitfire winning that. And Chatty, I should actually say, Chatty, he got MVP. I mean, Hardy has basically replaced Super as a Chad. Actually, no, he's replaced Bumper as a Chad. As a Chad Reinhardt player. So, I mean, if you're a lot of Spitfire fans, then you might love Chatty, and you obviously want him to be, to stay with you for next season. I think, I don't know what contract he's on. He might be on a 1+1 or 2+1 contract. Hopefully he's actually on a 2+1 contract. But it might actually be a 1+1. So what I mean by 1+1 is that he has a 1-year contract, and there's an option that he can go for another year. I think that's what that means. I talked about it in my midseason, in my off-season recap video. I think in one video about it, but that's basically how that works. Now, the Dallas Fuel versus the NYXL. What the hell? How the hell? First of all, how the hell did the Dallas Fuel almost lost to the NYXL? Because the NYXL, they have not been looking too good. They haven't. They've just been looking horrible this whole season. and yet the Dallas Fuel almost lost them. I think if the NYXL did win against the Fuel, that would have been, I think, the second victory for the NYXL this season. That's how bad they are. They've only had one victory, and it would have been massive if they actually did took down the the Dallas Fuel. It would be massive. A lot of 3-2s actually happening in the final week, so which is very, very, very fun. But Edison did get MVP for this match, and then finally we got the Boston Uprising versus the Florida Mayhem, and it was the Florida Mayhem reverse sweeping against the Boston Uprising. Recently as well, the Boston Uprising picked up Seeker. He's a DPS player. I think formerly from, where is he formerly from? I think Maryville Esports. I might be wrong with that. But he's currently inactive because he's not of age of competing in the Overwatch League. I think he's only 17 years old, so we won't be able to see him until maybe next one, which is I can't remember what that was. What is actually, I can't remember what the next one is after the Midseason Madness. Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all good. It doesn't matter. But very close game once again, and the Florida Mayhem punches that ticket into the playoffs. Let's now, before we have a look at the standings teams, we'll have a look at the next week's matches. If I can actually press show, there it is. Here are all the matches. So for maybe my matches of the week, maybe, I think maybe like, I don't know, like the Spitfire versus the Fuel, that might be a really good one. Maybe even Dynasty versus the Fusion. I don't know, like, there's not like a lot of like big matches going on here. Like, I mean, I generally don't know. I don't know. That's like the only like two matches I can really think of. The London Spitfire versus the Dallas Fuel, and the Seoul Dynasty versus the Philadelphia Fusion. You can maybe, can maybe go with maybe Gladiators versus Mayhem. Actually, not really, because the Gladiators are both gonna win that. I don't know. Like, if the Titans somehow win against the Justice, that might be massive, because obviously the Justice, they haven't been looking too good. So that might be one to watch, but that's not. That's not really the matches that you can really say that you're excited for. So have a look at the standings, shall we? So the standings for the West region have already been locked in. So the first place, I mean the SF Shock, who are currently undefeated as of right now. And then we got the LA Gladiators, the Dallas Fuel, the London Spitfire, Houston Outlaws, Atlanta Reign, Florida Mayhem, and the Toronto Defiant. They've all locked themselves into the Midseason Madness. All the teams outside of it. We got the Washington Justice, the Boston Uprising, the NYXL, the Paris Eternal, and the Vancouver Titans, who are still yet to find victory. For the East, so we know that the Seoul Dynasty, the Hangzhou Spark, and the Shanghai Dragons are in for the Midseason Madness, but the Valiant and the Charge are out. Now, I don't know if the Fusion and the Hunters are actually versing each other. No, they're not. So the Fusion Hunters are not versing each other, because I think they verse each other. I think they verse each other. I think there's this tournament somewhere in this qualifiers. So maybe actually all of the matches involving the Fusion or the Hunters. I think that might be one to look out for. So Fusion versus Charge, it'd be massive if the Charge actually wins that. Hunters versus the Dragons, that might be interesting to see how that goes. Spark versus Hunters, that might be pretty good now. And then the Dynasty versus Fusion. So the Fusion, ideally they should maybe win against the Charge and possibly maybe lose to the Fusion, to the Dynasty. But I mean, I think they might have a chance. As for the Hunters, I think they have a bit of an easier schedule here. Actually, no, never mind. I retract that. It's actually harder, because obviously they versus the Dragons, who do look a lot weaker, but I do think the Hunters, I do think the Dragons might win that, and then they're versing the Spark, who are the second best team in the East region. So, I mean, if you're a Hunters fan, you need to really pray for a miracle there. But that is, but yeah, that is all the standings. That's all. So that's it really for the week 9 for the Midseason Madness. And obviously next up will be week 10, and that'll be the final week before the playoffs for the Midseason Madness. So that's really about it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you guys on next time in the next one. Goodbye.